Gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to MGTOW Money, and a good day to all the new subscribers. Thanks for joining. Today's topic is going to be sort of a follow-up to a video I did a couple of videos ago. How to succeed, how you can succeed overseas without really trying. Before we get to that topic, though, I need to set the table. This, of course, is MGTOW 2.0. This is the second wave of MGTOW. This is about actionable, practical ideas that you can use today on improving your life, on achieving financial freedom, on moving forward with your life. There's not going to be a discussion of politics. I've got no news articles that I'm going to be discussing and parsing for tips on gynocentrism and how to identify it, etc. Nor do I have any emails to read from you regarding sad, lonely men and issues that they're having with former girlfriends, etc. You've taken the first step, I hope, towards real freedom by becoming a MGTOW. And now it's time for you to take the next step. If you want real freedom, MGTOW is not freedom in of itself. If you're a MGTOW and you have money, then you have freedom. And that's what it's all about, because the bottom line is you don't want to be working till you're 70, do you? Now, a quick recap regarding a video I did 2 videos ago, and that was how to ruin your life living overseas. And quite frankly, I'm shocked. I'm stunned. I thought this is, as one of the commenters said, this is common sense. I thought so too. I thought this is sort of a very middle-of-the-road type video. Evidently, it wasn't. I think for some of you, I challenged your religion or something about moving overseas. Some of you, for example, felt offended that I suggested that moving overseas to seek a wife or a girlfriend was not a good idea. That was somehow outrageous. That instead, that the women are far better overseas, and it's an excellent idea. Well, let me provide some sort of context and give you some information about my background, because again, evidently, it didn't come through very well based upon the comments. Number 1, I've been to approximately 20 plus countries. Number 2, cumulatively over the years, I've spent years, plural, living overseas in multiple countries. Number 3, again, contrary to some of the commenters that I saw, I know many successful expats, England, UK, the United States, who have moved overseas, who have succeeded quite nicely overseas. And then fourthly, I should say, I have, as you can probably imagine, plenty of experience dealing with women from overseas. That does not make me an expert on anything. It just provides you, though, some sort of context that, again, contrary to what you might think, yes, I do have experience with these things that I discuss. The last video that I did, How to Ruin Your Life Overseas, in 10 words or less, was a PSA, a public service announcement. I wanted it to be a warning. I was trying to warn men about going overseas under certain circumstances. I have seen many men literally self-destruct, literally destroy themselves moving overseas under some of the circumstances that I discussed during that video. If you can prove me wrong, you can say, well, I also won the lottery, or I hit the slot machine jackpot and I won $1 million. There will always be exceptions to the rule, gentlemen. I fully accept that. I fully accept that if you're an alcoholic and you move overseas, you could end up being a multimillionaire, billionaire, U.S. billionaire, and still be an alcoholic and still find a wife from a go-go bar. Congratulations. You have succeeded. You have not, though, proven the exception to the rule. Generally, this is not a good idea. Generally, it is not a good idea if you have emotional or substance abuse issues. Generally, it is not a good idea to move overseas if that applies to you. Generally, it's not a good idea to make your primary purpose to go overseas to find a wife or a girlfriend. Generally, it is not a good idea to fill in the blank. These are generalizations, gentlemen. Enough said on the last video. We're going to talk about how you can actually succeed, the type of guy that should move overseas, or at least consider moving overseas. Let's talk about number 1. You're a guy where you're working for a corporation, a company of some type, and they have dispatched you with an expat package, an expatriate package to live overseas. One of the commenters gave some specific examples. He evidently works in the oil and gas industry. His company is sending him overseas. Fantastic. This is a man who is in a tremendous position, a fantastic position, and I highly recommend anyone who has that type of opportunity to take advantage of it. Kudos to this man. And if I were given such an opportunity, I would do so in a heartbeat, and I would encourage any other person to do so. Number two, the second type of guy that seriously ought to consider moving overseas is someone who has some sort of very unique skill or talent, and they can achieve a very, very lucrative position by using that unique skill or talent. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have a military background or a law enforcement background. It goes without saying there is a lot of work, a lot of very lucrative work. You can make very serious money available working overseas. In particular, of course, in the Middle East. Yes, it's dangerous, but you can make some very serious money doing so. And it would be just as dangerous if I'm working in the streets of Chicago or Baltimore or some other inner city in the United States, for example. Another example, let's say that you have some sort of unique IT or consulting background. I met a guy, for example, who had a tremendous expertise and experience relative to internet security and specifically relative to the financial industry, who lived overseas. Again, I think that's fantastic. I think this is a man who can really do something, and he was making, evidently, quite good money doing it. Let's talk about a third type of guy who might consider, and I emphasize this is a choice. You're making a decision to do this. If you have some sort of internet business or some sort of work that allows you to work from anywhere, maybe you're a writer or something like that. Again, a commenter had mentioned that he does computer programming and lives, I believe, in the country of Greece. Fantastic. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think that's tremendous. Again, the idea being you're making a proactive choice to try something different. And furthermore, in particular, take note here that it's very financially lucrative. So I can't emphasize that enough, that these people are making substantially more money by working overseas than they would in their home country. Let me finish by a fourth type of person that I do feel like, that I do encourage, at least consider moving overseas, even part of the year, and I'll get to that in just a second. If you have sufficient passive income, now hear that term clearly, passive income. In other words, you're getting money coming into you, whether it be from a pension, whether it be from real estate, some sort of passive investments. Maybe it's from dividend-paying stocks or whatever. Maybe you should consider living overseas. And I'm not necessarily saying in a third world country, but in a second world country, developing country, or again, just stay where you are. It doesn't make me any difference, of course. You certainly don't need my approval, nor my endorsement. But my point is that it gives you a way to experience something different outside of your present home country. Furthermore, it might actually provide you a stronger, more upgraded lifestyle, if you will. I've spoken to many men who live overseas. I'm just going to use round figures. Let's say I'm earning $1,000 US a month. I have a $1,000 pension, $1,000 pension. I'm living in the United States. In the United States, you would be below poverty line. However, in many countries, that same $1,000 via what would be called financial arbitrage would actually give you a middle-class lifestyle. You would find, frankly, an upgraded lifestyle. So the point is that you might be able to achieve an upgraded lifestyle and you still have exactly the same amount of money. Again, something to consider. And to continue on with things to consider, you don't have to move overseas and live permanently. I never suggested that anyone should live overseas permanently. I've never suggested that a person should live overseas 365 days a year. If you have the wherewithal, whether it be financial or because of the type of work that you have or the type of income that you derive, You could do it for a few months a year. It's extremely common, for example, for Europeans, in particular those in Northern Europe, to migrate during the winter months to Southern Europe, Spain, Portugal, even to Southeast Asia for 3 or 4 months of the year. Just like in the United States, Canadians will live in Florida and Arizona for 3 or 4 months of the year. These are things to consider. In sum, moving overseas is very much of a lifestyle choice. It's kind of like choosing a hobby. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But it can be potentially very positive. It can be a positive financial choice for some men. And you might find a higher quality of life at a fraction of the cost than your home country. And thus you're able to hit your magic number at an earlier age and escape the rat race at a relatively young age. Again, that's the whole purpose of this channel. That's been the purpose from the very first video. Go back to the first video where I was talking about getting out of the rat race at a relatively young age, getting your basics covered. That's what it's all about. Lastly, all the examples I've given are of men who are making a positive choice in their life to move forward. They're moving towards something. They're not running away from something. Again, if you'll go back to that video that I did a couple of videos ago, those were men who were attempting to run away from something. Maybe they're running away from their loneliness, and therefore I'm going to find a, quote, good wife overseas so I'm no longer lonely, and so I have this attachment. And frankly, I find it surprising that, quote, MGTOWs are talking about that, although I must say it sort of proves Barbarossa's theory about that most MGTOW are one blowjob away from going back to the plantation, but I'll leave that aside. With that said, you want to be making positive choices in your life. You want to be not running away from things. Gentlemen, let me finish by saying we, of course, are building a MGTOW army of financially independent men. I need your help because we're going to move this forward. I need you to post this on forums. I need you to share this with friends. As always, I need you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you found this useful. John Galt, out.